Hello, everyone, and welcome to another South Asian artist in conversation with South Asian artists. Today we have Rachel Petladwala, and we're going to be talking about Rachel's career, focusing on her starting out as a younger actor on CBBC to now. So thank you very much, Rachel, for joining me today in
Thanks
conversation
for
with South Asian
having
artists.
me.
No problem. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Sun is shining. It's Friday. We're allowed to go out for drinks now. So
I know. I'm so glad. I hope the weather. This is a sign of the weather just getting warmer because it's. I feel like it's been sunny, but now it's actually getting warm. So
I know. I also love how British we are. Like we haven't even really had 3 words, but first thing we do is go to weather. But it's true. It's like we're cursed. Like I feel like bank holiday is going to start raining just because we've had
yeah,
weather now.
just because it's like the day when everyone's free and
Yeah.
the rain will pour down.
Yeah.
But for everyone who doesn't know who you are, if you could just say who you are and also how you got into the industry and where it all started for you.
Sure. So I'm Rachel Petladwala. I started in this industry as a complete fluke. I was 12 years old and the BBC sent an open audition flyer to pretty much every school in London. And my school used to get quite a lot of them and they never really paid much attention. And then just on a whim, they decided to read this one out. And it was for a show at the time called I Spy. And I went to an all-girls school and they were auditioning for 2 characters, one white girl and one brown girl. And so everyone just kind of went for fun. And I thought nothing of it. I was a complete jock at school. I wasn't in the drama club or like clique. I think the biggest role I had was like one of the giants in the BFG, not even the BFG. So I literally went completely for fun. And then auditions later, I got the role. And yeah, so it literally, as cliche as it sounds, kind of like fell onto my lap and into my life, and I got the bug pretty quick and haven't been able to quit it since.
So you had like no prior interest in acting at all, and like it just kind of happened accidentally. Really?
Yeah.
That's really cool. I guess like a lot of people have that prior interest. Like when they're younger, they do workshops. That's really nice. But like your first job was what made you interested in that?
Yeah, I never did Stagecoach. I did like we have a thing obviously here with the Lambda stuff, but everyone kind of did it. It wasn't. I never really had an interest. I used to think that you had to pay to be on TV. Like I didn't understand that you got paid. And so I never, and also like growing up, I never saw anyone that looked like me on TV. So I just like never really fell into it. And yeah, it was quite cliquey at my school and it was kind of like know your place. And so I knew my place, but apparently it wasn't the right one. So yeah.
You found the right one. And sort of talking about, starting off as a young actor, because that's what we're obviously going to focus on. What was it like being a young actor? And personally, would you recommend starting out at a younger age, or would you feel like you need that more experience?
What was it like? Well, I was 12, so my memory is a little bit hazy, but I do know that I had no clue what I was getting myself into. Because, starting out, you're so naive at that age. And also like, I was so fearless. I was personally very fearless. And you're at that age where you're learning new stuff anyway, right? You're at school, you're learning new subjects, you're learning new skills, new sports. So you just see it as like, I saw it as just like a new thing I'm learning to adapt to. And I didn't really like fathom that we were going to be on national television and that it was going to be sold globally. You don't think about that. All you think about is, cool, this is a new fun thing to do. I get to meet new people, older than me. How cool is that? And I get to like, go do something fun in the summer rather than bumming around at home. And even, when we started, I remember the first exec producer, Kerry Appleyard, and the 2 directors, Toby Haynes and Simon Hook, took us to Spooks because MI High was basically meant to be like a kid's version of Spooks from Kudos. And they took us there to show us what a film set looks like. And we were like, cool, this is cool. And then we had half a day of like camera training. This is how you hit your mark. This is how not to look down the barrel. This is whether, and I didn't think anything of it. I didn't feel pressure. I wasn't scared. I just kind of like learnt my lines. And it's mad looking back because I'm not that fearless now.
Yeah.
You know, now you overthink everything. And so starting out young, you know, I just didn't really understand the magnitude. And also, which is a massive blessing, is that we didn't have social media. You
Yeah.
know, Facebook only really came about, I think, in the second year. And even that was private, right? To you and your friends. And MySpace was too. And so I literally would just like film and then go to school. And I didn't really interact with fans or like see the kind of after effect, or you didn't
Yeah.
see critics reviews, and it didn't feel like you were on TV. And I never watched myself ever. I used to go
Oh,
to the
did you
premiere
not?
like this. No,
No
it's
way.
mortifying. And so yeah, I was very naive, and so I didn't really understand. But we were very, very, very well. I was very protected, thank God, both by the fact that there was no social media. But I had two amazing exec producers, Kerry Appleyard and then Emma Kingsman Lloyd, and amazing chaperones throughout. So I was very protected, you know, and I didn't actually realise that until afterwards. Would I recommend it now? In a way, yes. I never went to drama school. Drama school, I think, is amazing. It wasn't for me, but you know, the show was my drama school for 5 years, and I think it's definitely like a different way of learning this industry, because you also kind of learn the things that you don't know until you've been on a set, even the politics and things like that. You know, I picked up very quickly. I had to grow up very quickly. So I definitely recommend it in that sense. You know, if someone knows that they want to do this and whatever, why not start young? Why not, you know, just get straight into it if you have a part come up? However, on the flip side, I don't know if I would, because social media is a juggernaut, and it's a nasty place. It can be an amazing place. It can be an amazing place, you know, to be your creative outlet, to interact with people, but it's also nasty.
Yeah.
And you know, as a kid from 12 to 17, like, it was bad enough being a girl from 12 to 17. If I had that, and I don't know if anyone's watched the show, I know I didn't, you know, Rose wasn't meant to look cute at school. So, like, I already had that shit go on at school and in my real life. If I had to deal with social media comments and things like that at the same time, I don't know if I would have been as resilient. I don't know if it would have been great for my mental health. So, it's a different age, and I think as an adult, social media is extremely daunting and intimidating. So as a young actor, I can only imagine that maybe there's even more pressure to be a certain way, and you take things more personally.
That's really interesting that you also compare it to, say, if you were like 12 years old starting out now. I feel like there would be that added pressure because of how different the generation was compared to when you were 12. But also, yeah, social media, like as an adult, you can handle it more. But being 12 and having that pressure, so that's really good that you didn't really like have as much pressure as you may have had now.
We had like photo shoots and magazine interviews, and I had no idea where it was going. You know, you just turn up, have a great time, go home. I never saw the end product. I never saw the feedback or anything. You know, it was like it was like in a bubble almost. And now you'll hear everything that everyone has to say, and the trolls can be horrible. And I don't know if I could have handled it at that age.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of following on from that, obviously you mentioned you didn't go to drama school because obviously you were kind of fresh out of school. How was that experience? Like, did you feel like you were prepared enough that you had to learn on the job, or did it come just really naturally to you?
I think a bit of both. I think, not to sound cocky, I think honestly it's just because I was so young, you just kind of like adapt a lot quicker than when you're older. It came very quickly and very naturally. And I think that's also a testament, though, to the directors and the exec producer, because, you know, they were super patient, and and the whole crew, actually, the whole crew, and the actors that were adults, everyone was just super supportive, I remember. And no one ever kind of, you know, made you feel bad if you didn't understand what a term meant. Even the camera operator, I remember everyone was just like, by the way, this is what this means. And that's how I started, actually. Even now, I'm so interested in what DOPs do, what gaffers do, what everyone does, because you had to learn it, because people are, these terms are flying about, and they still took the time out to explain. But obviously, at the same time, they don't have all day. So I just had to like naturally pick it up on the job and ask questions, and no one ever rolled their eyes. There was never like a dumb question. And our shooting schedule was a lot for especially that age, and even though we had time restrictions because of our age, it was a lot to do. But we were filming for months, so you learn. It's not like an in and out job and then everything's different. So we picked it up really quickly, and then it just became like second nature.
Yeah, you kind of got the gist of it, and then you knew how things worked, and then you kind of
and you just rolled it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you said that obviously you never watched yourself, but that surprised me. So like even as a kid you never watched, and like do you think you could watch any back now, or you just like no, that's like in the past kind of thing?
Absolutely not. Like we would have premieres where you're obviously forced to watch yourself. I remember we had one at the Curzon, so it's an entire like cinematic screen, and I just sat there like this.
Oh no.
But to this day I don't watch. I'm training myself to watch what I do, because obviously that's how you learn and how. But I think I'm just super self-critical, as most actors are. Self-tapes, I remember I used to send it to my best friend, and he would be like, you need to grow up and watch yourself. It's the only way you're going to learn, and also you need to submit what you're comfortable with. And I only really learned how to watch it without being too self-critical in the past, I'd say like 2 years. But I hate watching myself. Do you like watching yourself?
Oh no, oh my god, I hate that.
Right?
See, I'm the type of person that like I hate it, but I have to, just because like I've just learned that like I've learned so much by watching myself, but also I just want to see like how bad I was or how good it was. I have to, but I hate it. And that's the thing I've said in previous interviews, we are our own worst critics. So we like I notice all these little habits that I do, and it just makes me cringe. So I completely get you, and I wish I could be the type to just like not watch, but
yeah, we have to. It's the only way to basically develop learn from it.
Definitely. Okay, and you've kind of touched on this a bit, but it was a question that was submitted in. If you have anything more to add on it, was starting out young how you imagined it to be like, or was it different, or did you have not much idea?
At the time, I had no idea. I didn't know what to expect, at all. So I didn't. I think the one thing I did, like I mentioned before, I literally thought you had to pay to be on TV. So I didn't imagine just how much support actors get on set. You do get support, and I didn't actually imagine though, the scale of how much a production takes. I didn't imagine how much work it takes. People always give actors a bad rep and being like, get a real job. Just try doing it for a day. Just try doing an entire schedule for a day. It was exhausting. I'd come home, I'd literally pass out. I'd get picked up at 5 a.m. and pass out in the car. And I didn't imagine that. I didn't imagine how intense it would be. You just kind of think, oh, cool, I'm just going to be on films and stuff and go home. Not at all. So I definitely didn't imagine the magnitude of the work and how grueling it can be. But I loved every second. I literally loved it. And I would cry every time that we finished filming.
Really?
Yeah, I hated it. Because then I'd go be like a normal kid.
Yeah. Was that balance kind of just like you're like on this CBBC show and then living your life? Like, did you find it quite hard to manage it, or did you find ways to sort of keep them separate?
I found it really hard. I found it really hard because you're on a job, and I think the hardest is when I turned about 13, 14, so between the second season and the third series, and then going forward, because that was when everything changes at school. It's like when everyone meets boys and girls and goes out and parties and things like that. And I go from like an entire summer where my closest friends are in their my age, but also in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and we talk like adults. I had to grow up very fast on that show. And then you go from that, and your life is a professional environment and working, and I would miss out every summer on house parties and girls' holidays and this and that, and I just never cared, because I literally loved. And then to go from that, and the drama that I'm dealing with is, are we going to finish the schedule today? Are we, you know, this, that? Rachel needs to go home, you know, she's worked her hours. From that to petty girl drama. And I really, really struggled with that. And I think I also, just in general, like at school, you know, being a brown girl with not many brown friends and just trying to fit in culturally, even like it was a bit like an identity crisis almost. But then also like a crisis of like, how can I go from being a full-blown adult to then going and I'm now doing Pythagoras' theorem and then getting like bitchy messages on MySpace. And it blew my mind. And I'd still be working throughout the school year, you know, taking to do shoots and interviews and stuff like that. I really, really struggled with it. And I think I only really came to terms with it, honestly, when I went to uni. Like, that was actually when I felt completely at peace with, okay, like, I can now enjoy both parts of my life.
Yeah. I know that's, you know, it's really great that you kind of found that peace and you're like, okay, you know, that's kind of happened. Because I guess, like, it is really fast paced and you kind of just have to find a way to deal with it because you've got like no other time. So no, that's good that you kind of found that. Cool. Okay, another question that was sent in by someone was, what was the reactions of your friends and family when they found out?
I actually remember exactly where I was. So my family were literally part of the entire casting process because there were literally so many auditions. And, you know, my mum had a job, my dad was working, my uncle, you know, but someone was always off to take care of the kids because of half term or whatever. So my mum would basically take me to every audition. My uncle would take me when my mum couldn't. My cousin read every single script with me. I learned all the lines of all the characters. And, you know, it was like a full family affair. And I was very lucky. Like, not once did my mum hesitate or say no. You know, she signed that contract straight away. She was my manager. I didn't get an agent till a lot later in life.
Okay.
My family were like super supportive, but they kept me grounded. My family are not the type to be like, oh wow, like showy offy. My family were like, remember where you came from, and love embarrassing me in a very endearing way. And all my cousins, we have a huge family. All my cousins, even in America, you know, just super, super supportive. And then friends, when I first got the part, it was like crazy. Everyone was like jumping all over me, and I was at school, and it was amazing. And you know, we were 12, and then once I think, you know, puberty kind of set in, and then as the years went on, I had like one group of friends which were like, you know, my best girlfriends since year 7, year 3, and whatever. And then things changed. And I can definitely handle myself, and I really hate saying the B word, but like it was like straight up girl bullying. Going to all girls school is vicious enough as it is.
Yeah,
And you know, these were girls, and these were girls that I thought, you know, were my best friends. We got up together. And it was only like I had another group of girlfriends, you know, and they are from school, and they're still 6 of my closest best friends to this day, most supportive girls you can meet. And it was only when I went to uni and I also met my best girlfriends from uni, and they were just kind of like, they're horrible to you. But I was so fixated on kind of like fitting in from going from filming, like, oh my God, no, like I have to fit in. And I just wasn't clicking that I am the joke. I'm not in on the joke. And, you know, it was like really tough. And my mum would, you know, all the time kind of check in, and she'd talk to the school. I mean, it got bad. It was like horrible, like girl bullying crap. And don't get me wrong, as you know, I can handle myself. I'm not exactly a wallflower. But it was only when I really kind of like look back in hindsight, I'm just like, whoa, like, you know, that was a lot. So my friends, I had friends that I thought were my friends that really weren't. And then, but I was also completely so lucky that I have the most supportive friends now, both from school and from uni, and not that really kind of like, if anything, highlighted what I should have had and what I didn't. But
well, I'm so sorry to hear that. I feel like
don't say sorry.
No, because I'm saying, like, at that age, I feel like what it comes down to is jealousy, because they probably saw that you were like on this show, and it's kind of the idea, and then it turns into hate and bullying. So it's just like,
I hate the jealousy card, because I don't literally, it's like, what? I don't know if it was jealousy or if it was just like girls being, I don't know,
just being
but it
younger.
was years ago now, and
Yeah,
we're all
and you
good now,
found like
so
your people, so that's
yeah,
the most important thing.
yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Another question that was sent in by someone is the process of I guess casting when you're younger.
Mm.
Do you know, or do you remember when you're younger, are they looking for more talent or someone who looks right? And then when you get older, does that become more important as well as looking right? So for you, does
That's
that
a good
kind of,
question.
yeah, does that, because I'm not too sure, because now it's obviously a mix of how you look and talent, but when you're younger, I'm not sure if they focus on like
Yeah,
one or the other,
I
or if you know.
if it changed, I think so. I think the look part when you're younger, the only thing about that is, I think if you look right as an ensemble, so not it's not about like aesthetically, like looks meaning like good looking in industry terms.
Yeah.
It's more like, if you're playing the kid of parents which are the lead in a show, you need to look like them.
Yeah.
For us, I think it was like, do we look good as a three? There were three leads, but it wasn't about, are you good looking? And then the talent thing, I think when you're younger, talent is obviously just as important, but it's rare. This was like a show led by three kids, so they
Yeah.
really, Simon Hook, who was one of the directors and he was part of the casting, we're very good friends still, and I always say to him, it's crazy because now we're friends as adults, and I'm just like, how did you not know that I was, you took like a chance, let's be honest. Because what comes with talent is you're looking for talent when you're looking at a younger actor.
Oh yeah.
But you're also looking for, will they be able to act like a professional? Will they be able to take direction? As an adult, you assume people, I know some adult actors can be difficult, people can be difficult, but as an adult, obviously it's assumed that you're professional and you take direction and you're collaborative. But if you're hiring three young kids to lead this show and you've got a strict schedule, there's no time to kind of like, mollycoddle. How were they confident that we weren't going to just turn up on set and be brats or not turn up at all? Or, so I think there's more pressure on the casting process when you're younger because you're looking for talent, but you're also looking for, will they be able to adapt to a film set? But then when you're older, I think there's more obviously emphasis on talent in the sense of you have a show reel.
Yeah.
So you don't just take the, you have a show reel and there's a lot more expectation, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But you've got more that you can back it up with almost. And then the looks thing is a completely different ballgame. I remember when I first started doing American castings, I was shocked. I once got told, you've got a great figure, make your top look a bit tighter and, like, put a bit more makeup onto it, whatever. And I was just so confused that people can just talk so frankly to me like this. And of course it's no myth. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it is an industry built, of course, on aesthetics as well,
for sure,
as talent. I like to think that it should be more talent focused, but of course you've got the mix of both. But yeah, so that was like a massive shock for me because I came from just being like, oh, like you just turn up and you do what you do and that's it. And then it was like, oh, like make sure you eat this. And I think it was in our like fourth year, Charlene and I, who was in the second kind of set of actors. She was the main lead with me, and we were both like, we ate everything. And obviously, like, I remember one of the kind of girls for makeup who was in her 20s was like, you guys can just eat everything and nothing happens. And we were like, food is fuel. What are you talking about? And she was like, just eating like rabbit food. And we just looked at each other like, should we be eating a burger and chips and dough from our potatoes? Like, what? And then it obviously turns, it's just an unfortunate part of especially being a woman, just constantly thinking about what you look like.
What you look like, yeah.
But it's exacerbated in our industry, isn't it?
No, exactly. I think that's, yeah, it kind of like what you eat, but now we're sort of also taught to like take care of your voice, and there's certain foods that can help you do that. And I guess as a kid you wouldn't focus on that as well because you wouldn't think that matters. So that there's also that change in terms of like looking after yourself physically, even mentally, and so that's and also what you said, it's true. Like I feel when you're younger, because you don't have headshots or a show reel, they do focus on what they see in the room, but now they've got access to like so many more things than previous work as well, so that obviously is big difference now.
And even for MI High, we had like, I think the first 3 auditions were just improv. And then they released the script. But it was, I mean, it must have been at least 7 or 8 auditions, which you wouldn't necessarily have now as an adult. But it was because obviously, like, how do they know? You know, they have to see the consistency there.
So I guess as a kid you have more because they need to kind of build that trust and also see if you'll be able to handle that, not just obviously from their side, but if like it's something, whereas now they know, you know, you're an actor, they see what they see in the room and then they feel like they trust you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Cool. Okay, so next question is, what for you was the biggest challenge, you know, starting out younger compared to your biggest challenge as an adult, and does it compare or would you say were like differences?
I think my challenge was probably what we've touched on, which is when I was younger, which is like dealing through becoming a teenager and dealing with like all the flack I got from the people I was surrounding myself with in school and whatever, and then having to then just go into like an adult mode and professional, and you know, I would have 2 or 3 months of school cut, so you know, picking up that and you know, working on the clock. It was, I mean, especially when I hit 16, it was, you know, being picked up at 5 and it was the other side of London. By the time I got home it was 9, so you're just exhausted. But you know, like I said, I loved that part though. I never woke up dreading work. And you know, that's what we want out of life, isn't it? You want a job that you wake up excited for.
Yeah, that you're not dreading.
Right. And then I think the biggest challenge I have now being an adult is so when I was younger, I was very naive and fearless. Now I know how the world works and how the industry works. And I think that creates, you know, a plethora of anxiety and overthinking. I am a classic overthinker and I never used to be when I was younger. Right?
I'm same.
Don't go to bed at night because I'm like, great, just as I'm knackered. Now let's think about what you said 5 years ago.
Oh my God.
You know,
I'm glad you can relate. Everything just kind of goes
why
in
did
your
I
mind.
do that in that tape? What did I do something wrong? Did that casting director hate me? And you're just like,
it would cringe that I did.
You overthink every little thing. And I think that's definitely the biggest challenge. I think obviously as actors, rejection is 90% of our world, and I'm learning now to use that though, you know, to learn from it. And I don't take it as personally anymore. I think I first did when I first started because you know, I was on a job for 5 years. So when I started getting consistent rejections, I was like, oh, this is the reality that everyone's talking about, you know, like, and I was like, oh right, okay, it's not as smooth sailing as I thought. So yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge. I think just dealing with just, you know, overthinking everything and just trying to get over your anxieties and focusing on the good and what to do constructively going forward.
I think like you mentioned obviously as a kid, because you know you did have long hours as you were saying, like 5 till 7, but I think it's really great that you didn't dread it, and like as a kid you're like so excited, especially you said you were naive, so that's good that kind of kept you going. Whereas now, you know, I think it's obviously, you know, we are our own worst critics, but we also need that other awareness. Like we need to kind of overthink things to make a good judgment and to know when we're being mistreated in the industry and when we're not. So it's good that like you've got that awareness now.
Yeah, completely. And you know, it was a massive shock because it's only in hindsight I realized there were things that were definitely, I think I was way too naive in that situation. That wasn't okay. But the majority of it, I'm like, I was so protected, and that's a testament to the chaperones and the producers and the directors and the whole crew, really, you know. And then it got to everything post doing a show for 5 years, and it's like,
then you realize
you're not actually that protected all the time. Yeah,
that's the same thing with me as a kid. It wasn't actually till more recently, like, you know, I was in the mindset that, you know, when you get like your big break, which for you obviously was MI, like that's it, you're going to be working. But it's like, then at the time you can feel like, okay, I'm sorted, but then when you have that break you're like, okay, this happens to every actor who's done the biggest films, that they're not going to be working, and that's just how the industry is. And especially
and people don't talk about what they didn't get.
And that's another thing with social media. I think, you know, you can think that everyone's working all the time, but people are only showing when they are working and not when they're not. So you see what they're doing, but you don't see but they're not. So
Yeah, exactly.
fantastic. Okay, we're going to move a little bit away from MI High. I'm going to ask you about your more recent work, and then we'll go back to it.
Okay.
So you were a few years ago, you were on Citizen Khan. How was
Yes.
that experience, and what did you most enjoy about working on that?
Oh my God, it's gonna be a long answer. Citizen Khan was so much fun. Like, and I'm not just saying it. So it was really weird. I got a casting for it, and then I didn't, and it was just casting director and I didn't hear anything for a while, so I just kind of thought it went away. And then I had a recall with one of the directors, and then I got the part. And then it was like, okay, like, go up to Birmingham for a fitting, and because they were on location at the time. And so I have, I've been a part of a long show before, and I'd never at that point been a guest, and it was just a guest episode. That's the only thing that I knew. It was just one episode. Shabana comes in as the niece, and that's it. And I just thought, I'm going into their territory. They have been on this show for years. They're a tight knit team. Adil Ray's like a huge knit. I was completely intimidated. I didn't know, and also it's so daunting when everyone knows each other, the cast, the crew, and you're going in for a week. And how do you, it's hard to build a rapport, and then you get social anxiety, and then it just keeps going. And I remember I went in for my fitting, and I got into my trailer, and I just tried things on, and then I'd had a box of chocolates and a card. I opened the card, and it said, "Dear Rachel, welcome to the Citizen Khan family. Love, Adil." I didn't need to do that. I was just I was just a guest star. And then I ended up having lunch there, and then I met Krupa and Bhavna. I don't think Abdullah was there that day, and then I met Adil. And Adil, completely lovely, whatever. And I'd never done a sitcom before. He was kind of like, "How are you feeling?" Because we were going to start. We had some location stuff, and then we were going to film in the studio in Manchester. He was like, "How do you feel?" And I was like, "I've never done a live audience. Not gonna lie, it's a bit nerve-wracking, but I'll be fine." And literally like that, he said, "Well, I want you to come a week before, watch us shoot the episode before, get comfortable. I want you to get to know the entire cast and crew. No one does that. That's it's quite rare." And he just went above and beyond to make sure that I felt comfortable with everyone. Then I get there, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm just gonna go and watch and go back to my my apartment or my hotel. And the Krupa and Bhavna and Abdullah and the hot Shobu, everyone made me feel so comfortable. The girls went shopping, they'd invite me. Abdullah was like, "Let's go to McDonald's." Everyone just didn't treat me kind of like, "Well, she's gone in a week. What's the point?" And so that is above and beyond, and you don't always get that with a cast, especially a cast of a long running show. And so in terms of personally, and the crew were lovely too. It was an amazing experience. And then when it comes to the character, I mean, the reason as well that it even appealed to me is like Shabana is a young girl who comes out as bisexual to her uncle, who is old school. And I remember, Citizen Khan is obviously a comedy. It's, above and beyond comedy, and it's very witty and whatever. But there is that scene that I will never forget, and it was between Adil and I. And it's when she comes out to him.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it was such a tender moment. It wasn't a massive scene. It wasn't over the top. But like, more to the point, I think it's just so important to show representation. In the South Asian community, homophobia is still rife, and it's no secret. And it pisses me off. And so to play a character where it was, and also it was so innocent, and she was young, and it was just, coming out, and it wasn't this whole big deal. It was just a really tender moment in the episode, and it was just like, thank God we're getting more representation on screen. And so so it was literally so great, and it's such a shame the show didn't get picked up again or carry on, whatever happened. But it was just so much fun, and I'm still in touch with the girl, and Adil, and they were just so welcoming and so lovely, and you can't really ask for more. And also, it is the least stressful environment I've ever been in. And I kept saying it to them, and they kept saying, like, "We get it." Every film set you go on pretty much has a time constraint. Let's be honest. You've got producers on set, like, why are we not directors are stressed, everyone's stressed, actors
so fast pace. It's just
fast pace. Everyone's kind of, and you're always behind schedule most of the time. Let's be honest. It's just a way of life. Citizen Khan, their rehearsals, and everyone just kind of like knows what they're doing, and it was just, everyone was just happy and go lucky, and just kind of like, this is amazing. how is this your life? You know, and it was just, yeah, it's a testament to how, you know, how great they were as a casting crew.
Definitely. And, you know, what you mentioned about the representation element of that, I think obviously there are more stories about you know, homosexuality and homophobia within the South Asian community, but what I've noticed is always for the most part on a drama, and it's in a very serious environment. But what I really liked about that is that it was a comedy, and the way it was done, it was a serious moment, but it was still a comedy environment, and the way it was done, it was kind of just really subtle, and you people can watch that and be like, that's me. This is if people
It's a
are
way of
struggling.
life. The episode wasn't revolved around her bisexuality.
No.
It wasn't revolved around her having a girlfriend. You know, there didn't need to be in one episode of a sitcom an on-screen kiss. There was no need to, you know, it was just, this is the character, this is all her facets. She was difficult, she was rebelling against her parents, and she's homosexual. And it was just, you know, it was I think such a great role for me, and I'm so lucky that I played Shavana. So yeah, it was a good one.
Fantastic. And yeah, you play that really well as well. I just like enjoyed watching that episode. I think what you mentioned about the crew and cast being really welcoming, I think there is sometimes a problem with hierarchy in the industry, especially if it's a small tight-knit cast. They can be like, oh, it's just, you know, one person for a day, but it's really nice that they didn't think they were above you, and they made you feel like part of the show, even if it's just one episode. You know, you are there to help make that episode, so that's really nice. Not even just on set, but even after. It wasn't just like, okay, we're actors. Oh, and on a personal level, that's really nice that you had that connection.
And also, like, I looked around the room and I was like, it literally just clicked, like, I'm in an not all brown, but majority brown cast. Like, this is wild.
Yeah.
And then three of us, we made a joke. So obviously the characters are Pakistani, but Krupa Bhavna and I are three Gujarati girls.
Yeah.
And I remember when we clocked, and then I told Adil, I was like, you've got another Gujar in the family, and he was like, all the Khan girls.
All right, Gujar.
Yeah.
And you obviously mentioned I completely forgot actually that it is in front of a live audience. And you said you'd never done that before. So that's a really interesting experience, you know, doing TV, but in front of a live audience. I mean, how was that?
I was so nervous. So we'd done all the kind of location stuff, which is normal just with a camera. But you rehearse the whole week for this day so that it's seamless in front of the live audience. And you know, I was just, you know, saying, you know, I was waiting in the back. So Adil made a big thing where he didn't want to let the audience see me, because, you know, Shabana was just so kind of like grungy and, you know, short shorts and flickering. And then the first scene I have in the episode is the reaction of the family to me physically. And he was like, I want the audience to have that same. And I was like, okay, so he was like, get in the back, you know, hiding me, even when like they were getting the set ready. I was like, okay, so that's obviously like even more nerve-wracking. And then and you're literally, obviously, the good thing is you've got the cameras and all the lights in front of you, so it's almost like you actually can't see them, you block them out, but it's obviously tiered audiences just behind. And I was just freaking out internally. I was just like, don't mess it up, don't mess up your lines, even though I pretty much had like 5 lines in that first scene. And I knew all my lines back to front. It seems we've rehearsed it all week.
Yeah.
And I came on and I just heard the audience go, my heart just sank. But it was the exact reaction we wanted, and we got it. And, you know, at the end, like, we high-fived, and I was like, yes. So in a way, I was like, whoa, because that was when I was like, all eyes are on just me. And obviously you've got a fourth wall, so I'm just not, it's not like, you know, the stage where you're literally just as if there's no audience. And then I just went, and then it was fine. And then after that first moment, it was completely fine. They have a great audience who are super engaging and super supportive. But yeah, once that initial gasp and laugh, and that was the other thing, I'd never done comedy. So I was like, okay, what if they don't find me funny? What if I don't hit the beat? What if I don't? they were laughing. But you know when you just need that one laugh.
Yeah, you need that energy from the audience, and then...
That's it. And then it was everything go. It was good.
I think there's also pros and cons, because like you said, like, because on TV you can mess up because no one is there, you can just read it, but when you've got an audience you can't.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is that thing about the energy, like you said, the energy of the audience kind of influencing your performance. So it's like a kind of...
And it was fine to mess up because it was still a recording, but you have that pressure. It's not like a stage where it's like, oh, awkward. You still feel like, I've been rehearsing for a week. I'm the new girl. I can't mess up. If I mess up, you know. And then I was just freaking the hell out, and then I was completely fine. And they were also, especially like, I remember Krupa was like, just chill out, be fine. It's gonna be good. It doesn't matter. And I was like, okay.
Okay, and we're going to move on to something else that you've done. I think it's been more recently. Is it's called The Complex. How was that whole experience of filming?
The Complex was complex. So it was an interactive feature, which means that we had a plethora of different kind of streams that the storyline can go down, and the audience choose. So so kind of like Bandersnatch.
Bandersnatch, I was going to say.
Yeah. So you choose, and then it's got a variety of different endings. Now, it was I remember when I first got it. So one of my best friends, Paul Rashid, he was the director. So I kind of had an element of confidence because I can, rather than a new director, I can literally speak to him, and I did, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I was so excited. But I remember after the first table read, and I met the other actors who are lovely. Again, another amazing experience actually working with that team. And I remember we took the first read through, and Michelle Milet, who is a Canadian actress who played the lead, we just kind of we just met, and we just kind of, you know, looked up hours later, and no one was looking, and we just kind of made eye contact and just literally went, you know, like, do you have any idea what just happened? Because you're reading it and you're flipping back and forth, and you're, you know, alternative ending and alternative stream, and we were both just like, but Paul, and I already knew this, is one of the most organized and, you know, put together people I've ever met. It can be annoying as his best friend. So luckily, you know, there were days we turned up to set and it would kind of be like, oh my God, wait, what version of Emily am I today? What version of the ending are we doing? And luckily him and the script supervisor, a friend of mine, Sylvia, she and him just always knew exactly what was going on. And of course you think, well, obviously it's their job. With interactive scripts, it's a different ballgame. It's a whole different, you know, it's definitely the future of filmmaking. Well, a stream of it. But they just, luckily, like, honestly, they just had their stuff together. And it was just so much fun to film. I think it was such a fun film. The crew were great. The cast were amazing. The story was so fun. The character was, like, different to anyone I've ever played. You know, she actually wasn't specifically South Asian. The character name was Emily Harrington. And it was just, you know, a girl. And she can be brown, you know, and I love when I get even readings for things like that, castings for things like that, and it was a great one to film, and we had a lot of fun. But it was also mad because our release date was March last year.
Okay.
And the premise of the film is, you know, a bioweapon, which is essentially a virus used as a bioweapon, and, you know, kind of the side effects are intense, not verbatim, but kind of like a flu aspect, and people have to quarantine. And it got released like a few weeks after lockdown was announced, and obviously COVID-19 became a pandemic. And
it wasn't even intentional, it just happened to be that way.
Yeah. And the main location that we were filming in was the old Pfizer building. And obviously Pfizer made one of the vaccines. And
no way.
Was kind of like, I was like, bro. He was like, bro. I was like, this is wild, you know? It was, you can't write it.
You predicted the future.
It was mad, but it was an amazing shoot, and it was a great project to be involved in. So yeah.
I liked how you said it was, obviously you were South Asian, but it wasn't centered around the fact that you were just a brown girl playing a brown girl, and that was
Yeah,
That
and
way.
I think both are very important. I mean, I obviously love
Yeah.
playing characters that are meant to be South Asian, and we're telling the stories that
Oh yeah.
we want to tell, not the stereotype stories that we're sick and
No.
tired of people telling us that they want to see. No, you don't. There are so many that people don't know that we should be telling,
Oh,
and
for
that's
sure.
when how we, as you and I always discuss, are regaining our power by being the filmmakers behind it. But it's also refreshing that, you know, I am actually a British girl that goes through things that other girls do, and you know, the color of my skin doesn't dictate that. So
No, like
yeah,
you need the both. It's important to show our stories, but at the same time, you can't. That's just, you can't just stereotype us, because
yeah,
there are so many other stories that aren't to do with our race that we need to show as well. So
yeah,
as long as you've got that mix, that's the way we need to
that's
go.
the way forward.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. I'm going to end on a final question before we quickly go into some fire round questions.
Okay.
It kind of goes back to starting out young again, but I remember when I watched, it was Am I High and Sarah Jane, because I feel you and Anjali Mahindra, I might be wrong, were one of the only brown actors on CBBC, or generally that I saw on screens at the
I
time.
think so.
I might be wrong, but so I remember, like, I was so naive, and still to an extent I am naive to representation. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know what it was and why it was important. But it was interesting because I remember watching it with my cousins, and I was like, oh my god, it's a brown girl, both you and Anjali. And probably subconsciously in my mind, I was like, this feels so good to be seen, but I didn't think anything of it as a kid. So from your end, did you, as a young kid, feel any pressure that you had to represent, or were you also naive to representation?
100% naive when I started, because I hadn't seen anyone at that point. You know,
Yeah.
No one. You know, you had an Asian family on EastEnders, but it wasn't my age. It wasn't someone that was, you know, living my kind of life. And so I was really naive to that. And also, you know, like I said, like I never got young girls saying to me at that point, oh my God, you look like me and you changed the way that, you know, this, and you made me feel X kind of way. And the first time I really thought about representation side is when Charlene, so we had a massive recast in MI High after 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And the new exec producer, Emma, brought in a new cast, and Charlene and I, and Ben, we were the 3 leads. And Charlene and I had this conversation. We became very close very quickly. She's still one of my dearest friends. And, you know, we had this moment of like, we have a black and brown girl as the 2 leads on, you know, the biggest show on the CBBC at the time. And we were like, that is wild. That is wild.
Yeah, that is.
And, you know, we would really bond over, you know, just being a young black girl and a young brown girl in society in general. And we even have these conversations now because, you know, we still have moments of like, whoa, like, you know, people just kind of glaze over, or, you know, someone said this to me and thinks it's okay. And but that was when we first kind of realized like, whoa, this is different. But the first time I really got people coming up to me about it was later, because like I said, we didn't have social media, so we didn't really interact with people like that. And it was when I was at school and girls that were, you know, in the years younger than me would make comments like that, and I was like, holy crap, that's so true. There is no, even on, you know, adult shows, there was no brown girls. There was never a brown teenager. It was never revolved around a brown teenager like we have now, thank God. But I didn't feel pressure. I'll tell you why. I didn't feel pressure. I felt proud. I felt, you know, so lucky as well. And I never felt like I was pressured. But I think that's also because there was never anything asked of me. It was just, you know, I was so appreciative when, you know, these girls would come up to me and say things like that. Even boys being like, oh, you know, there's a brown girl on my TV who's my age. What the hell? And I never thought of it like that until people started saying it to me. And it's only really in hindsight that I actually understand the kind of, like, I don't know if it was a conscious decision by the BBC, but to have Ange and I side by side on the 2 big CBBC shows and 2 brown girls kind of at the forefront of it. And, you know, they were meant to be cast as, well, Rose Gupta was meant to be cast as South Asian.
Yeah, so they had that in mind already.
Yeah, and it's only looking back, really, that as an adult, that I'm like, whoa, you know, that wasn't a thing growing up back then. But yeah.
But I think that's amazing that you kind of, initially paved that way, because since then, obviously it's not where it should be, but there obviously has been more South Asians on screen, so it's really great that to see two South Asian girls on one of the biggest shows at the time, and you would think it would be even better now, but it's like it still has that space.
That's the thing, like I wasn't a best friend, I wasn't a token, I was
you're a lead.
And that really only hit me when I was older, for sure.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm just a bit thing about time. I'm gonna sorry to sort of cut that off quick.
No.
We're just gonna go into some quick fire round. But no, I think that was a really good thing to end on, anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are completely random. First fire round question is: what is one of your fears? Sorry to put that on you.
Oh my god, I'm gonna sound like a crazy person. I have like one fear, and that is someone breaking into my house and murdering me.
Oh my god, that's not my biggest, but that is what I feel like I think about that on a daily.
Yeah, and people are like, well, obviously people fear that. I'm like, no, guys, I watch horror movies on my own, always have. But God. My mum used to let me watch Crime Watch, and ever since Crime Watch and those reconstructions, to this day, I hear a creak, I'm like, that's it.
Oh my god.
Done. That is literally, like, probably, I'm not scared of heights, not scared. That is probably the only thing I'm scared of.
Well, that's good. At least you're only scared of one thing. I've got a million.
But more practically, fear of, I don't know, failing.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a better answer.
Good. Cool. Number 2. What is your favourite music genre, if you have one, or just one that you like?
I listen to everything. I listen to acoustic, indie rock, hip hop, old school hip hop and R&B, rap. Love Bollywood music. I have a very eclectic taste. My favourite bands are like Red Hot Chili Peppers and Stereophonics, but I'm also a massive Tupac fan, and I'm a massive Dave fan, and I'm also a massive Paolo Nutini fan, and also we all love Fidelity Ali Khan. So it's like, you're the same, aren't you?
Literally, like, my music taste is so random. Like, one minute I'll be listening to indie, and then it'll be Bollywood, and then it'll be hip hop. Like, it just it's nice because you get to experience like a whole range. But there are ones that I like a bit more. But
yeah.
Okay, number 3. I've heard this one before, but I thought it was an interesting one. So would you rather be able to speak every language in the world, or be able to talk to animals?
Talk to animals.
I don't know what I'd do on that one, because I feel like they're amazing, but I feel like to talk to animals just to find out what they're thinking would be pretty cool.
And they don't, this is so cringe, but they don't have a voice, and
yeah, no,
especially with what's going on and has been going on with poachers, and just the way that so many species are being extinct. Humans, we can find a way to interact without talking.
Yeah.
Whereas animals, it's like, I want to know, what do you want from me? What
are they feeling? You want to know what they're actually feeling. That would be cool. Okay. Number 4 is it's going back to a child as well. What was your favourite hobby or game as a child?
Well, it wasn't really a hobby, it was a job, but I literally didn't understand it was a job. Obviously acting. But my favourite thing was netball and lacrosse. I was like, netball was my like number 1 sport, but I was just loved playing sports, and I wanted to be a professional netball player when I was younger. That was my dream career. My mum was like, excuse me, is that like another language for doctor? And I was like, yeah. And then lawyer, and then actor. Yeah.
Were you quite sporty as a kid?
Yeah, I did every sport. Very, very sporty, and then carried on netball at uni as well, and then I just couldn't commit after. So
yeah, fantastic. Okay, final one I like to ask everyone this at the end is if you could go back and say one thing to younger Rachel, what would you say?
A quote just came to my head, and you're going to tell me off, but I have to swear.
Oh my god!
But it's not me.
No, go for it.
So one of my favourite quotes, or something she said, not verbatim, Helen Mirren said, if I had kids and if I had a daughter, the one piece of advice I would have given her, and I'd give my younger self, is to say fuck off a lot more. Because as women, we don't get told it.
No.
Now, that resonated so highly for so many reasons. You know, we're women.
Mm-hmm.
We're told, oh, you know, it's just a bit of, it's banter. It's not misogyny, it's banter. Oh, relax. Like, don't, you know, oh, know your place. You know, everything, you know, fuck off. Just fuck off. We're South Asian.
Yeah, that's a whole other.
I grew up with so much racism my way, and it was like, oh, don't make a big deal out of it. Oh, he's not racist. He's not racist. That's, you know, don't call him a racist. And then you feel guilty for making it, you know, it's like, okay. I remember once, like, I was called the P word at a house party with the girls I aforementioned, and no one said anything. And it was kind of, I was like, all right. And fully just like, they were just like, oh, like, who's that P? And I was like,
oh my God.
It's like, oh, me. No one said a word. And I said nothing because I was like, don't be the difficult brown girl. Don't be difficult. Yeah. Don't play the racism card. So again, fuck off. And then third, you know, being in the South Asian community, we have a plethora of issues within our community. Oh, yeah. And I bet you found the same thing. It's like, be a good little brown girl. You know, my mum is amazing and has never told me not to be an actor. Other people in my family have said, are you sure she wants to do this? She's going to go down the wrong path, whatever. And not only that, but, you know, there's so much pressure that comes on us as brown women, especially when we're younger, that, you know, filters down from generations of old school mentality. Again, I wish I turned around when I was younger and I just went, fuck off. And I definitely do now. But I wish I had, you know, I was so hell-bent on not being the difficult female minority to everyone growing up. Don't be difficult was what was always in the back of my head. Don't be awkward. And now I just tell everyone to fuck off.
Yeah, because we're told there's so much that we're told not to say, and it's like going back, just you wish you could just tell everyone to.
And when you feel like the minority, you don't feel like you have a voice.
No.
And you feel like you're the one that's in the wrong. And it's in hindsight, you're like, what?
Yeah.
That's you not okay.
Yeah. How we could change. Okay, it's almost about to cut off, but yeah, that's a good one to end on. Just tell everyone to F off.
Thanks, Helen.
Thank you so much. I was going to say for being on the show. It's not for being here speaking with me today. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and thank you so much for sharing all of your insights from, you know, starting out as 12-year-old Rachel to where you are now. It's been a pleasure hearing, and I think it'll be beneficial for people who watch CBBC as well to hear from the girl herself. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
No problem. This will be out in a couple of weeks. I'll let everyone know when it will be posted. But enjoy the rest of your day, Rachel, and have a good day, everyone.
You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.